The civil rights movement of the 1960s was spearheaded by the efforts of numerous African Americans, along with people from all races, supporting the idea that all people should be treated equally and have equal rights regardless of race. The most famous and influential figurehead of this movement was Martin Luther King Jr., who, while in jail in 1963, wrote a letter from a Birmingham jail, which pleaded for the support of fellow clergymen, along with other whites who remained indifferent to join their side and help fight against racial inequality. Now, in order for the civil rights movement to gain favor, Dr. King decided that the best course of action after the numerous failures was to have large-scale nonviolent protest and perform direct actions such as sit-ins in order to make their voices heard. In order to test the effectiveness of this theory, we went out and asked some of our residents of the city about what they think. Hey, sir, will you do an interview?
Sure.
So, what do you think about the civil rights movement?
I think the entire thing is a farce.
And why do you think that?
Well, I'll tell you why. It goes against our Constitution and our core American values.
But doesn't our Constitution and core American values say that all people are equal?
They do, but we have that separate but equal thingy, so they shouldn't be complaining because they are considered equal to us. Plus, they got that equal protection clause or whatever it's called. But one more thing, I've been reading some of that Animal Barn book, and it raises a good point about us whites being more equal than those other people.
Well, for starters, there is a massive disparity between white facilities and black facilities. Second, the 14th Amendment guarantees protection from discrimination, of which it is failing miserably, seeing us African Americans are being heavily discriminated against. And third is Animal Farm, and that is a book about communism.
Wait, it is? I thought it was a book about some animals being better than others, and it was about our core American values.
Jeb, are you okay? Whatever the letter addresses the core American values of equality and freedom. Not only did it do this, but it also furthered the civil rights movement's agenda and made it more mainstream, also bringing more people who remain impartial over to their side. Back to you. By the time of writing, Martin Luther King has already grown a name as a prominent civil rights leader. His support is growing fast, yet just as quickly he is receiving backlash on his methods. While peaceful, there are those who believe he is progressing too quickly towards equality. He was arrested for violating anti-protest injunction laws on Good Friday. His nonviolent tactics of building from nonviolent protest to tension and negotiation that leads to policy change. If all fails, he would see violence as a permissible form of protest. He demands the execution of the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause, as well as the upstanding of the Declaration of Independence. The Equal Protection Clause states, "Nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction by the equal protection of the laws." Dr. King writes on behalf of the blacks community. Oppression under the disgusting Jim Crow laws. He challenges how such laws provide equal protection to both the black and white community. He especially writes about police brutality and segregation in Birmingham, Alabama. The biggest quote, "You may ask, why direct action, why sit-ins, marches, and so forth? Isn't negotiation a better path?" You are exactly right in your call for negotiation. Martin Luther King Jr. is striving for direct action to combat the systemic racism plaguing society. He believes that we must take action in order to get to negotiation and create progress. This shows us that the in-group won't secede without direct action and tension. Throughout American history, we have seen hundreds of years of oppression. Just think about this. Pre-Civil War, the fact that he wrote this letter would have seemed radical. An educated black man who can read and write, this is everything they feared. Progress post-Civil War, we see the start of Jim Crow laws. The white people in power still fear the educated black population. This hasn't changed. The in-group fears nothing more than the out-group becoming educated. It is always is the wrong way to go about it. We ask what is the right way to protest oppression. Why does history always tell us we are doing it wrong? So I have brought out my friend, Bill.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Thanks for coming on today. I'm amazing.
Anything for you. So the letter from Birmingham jail.
Yes, that's why I brought you in here. So in your experience, what do you think the reason is for the form of protest never seeming to be right?
Well, to be honest, the in-group, or in this case, moderate whites, are always reluctant to succeed in power and fight against the oppression of the out-group, simply because they benefit from it.
Wow, I could not have put that better myself. This seems to follow us through history as many groups push to not be oppressed. Will this ever change?
I don't think so. However, with people like Dr. King calling out all those not taking action as part of the problem, I think we will have more and more people joining the cause, that there is never a perfect way or time to protest.
Well, thank you for coming out. Bill, everyone!
You there, what are you doing?
I'm dusting a Ford.
Oh, are you a Ford owner?
No, I'm a dog.
Do you think everyone should be a dog?
Well, that's something everyone should decide for himself. But I do think everyone should be a Ford owner, don't you?
The letter from Birmingham jail introduced new conflicts for the Southerners. As individual liberties were promised to blacks, racial tension and order will arise. In Dr. King's letter, he states, "But I must confess that I am not afraid of the word tension. I have earnestly worked and preached against violent tension, but there is a type of constructive, nonviolent tension that is necessary for growth." King goes on to say that nonviolent action is absolutely necessary for any change to occur. Here today we have another guest with us. Please welcome William.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Of course, thank you for coming tonight. Now, to get into it, what do you think of MLK's thoughts on nonviolent action and the relationship between security and liberties?
I think it's about time someone speaks up. The injustices within this community are running rampant.
Can you give us an example of these injustices?
Police brutality is known across the nation. Birmingham is and will only be remembered for its unfair treatment if this continues. Every day, racially targeted bombings and murders occur.
That's crazy. I can't imagine anyone feels safe. Has there been any attempt to address these problems before MLK?
Leaders within Birmingham have sought to negotiate with the city's fathers, but time after time, they have been rejected from negotiation. For the security of Birmingham's white community, our individual liberties are being violated.
Okay then, please welcome our very fiery and passionate guest.
No, I'm not done yet.
Now, Dr. King is a great leader, and you can clearly see that in his tactics. So far, he's been organizing movements and rallies in individual towns, typically within the same state. This forces the state to do something about the problem instead of relying on the federal government to tell them the states to solve it, which in turn leads to the state changing their laws. This state-to-state tactic may be slow, but King hopes that if enough states change their laws, then either the federal government will change theirs, or the states that haven't created new legislators will follow suit to the states that have. With all this protesting, joining me today with his own views on this, please welcome Mike.
Hey, thanks for having me on tonight.
No problem, Mike. It's a pleasure to have you. So what do you think about this whole situation with the protesting King strategy?
It's a tough issue, that's for sure. And I agree with you that King's state-to-state tactic is probably the best way to do this. Just look at which states experience most discrimination. It's all the southern states the King is going after. Sure, the North has some iffy policies on discrimination, but nowhere near as bad as down south. It's more effective for King to focus his efforts on fighting discrimination where it's worst, which, as you said, will hopefully inspire other states to change their laws and policies as well.
That's very interesting insight, Mike. Now, if you don't mind me asking, why do you think it's more effective for the states to fix this individually as opposed to the federal government passing new legislation to do so?
It's quite simply because the states won't do it. There is no incentive for the states to change practices they've had for decades now. If the government tried to force these states to give this up all at once, we'd see a situation similar to the Civil War, albeit probably on a smaller scale most likely. It would be catastrophic regardless.
Huh? I never thought about that, and I'm sure many of you at home haven't either. Let's hear it for Mike. Go. I feel like this topic is difficult to discuss in general. Sometimes we people shy away from topics such as race and systems of oppression. I just wanted to thank everyone who listened and now understands the letter from Birmingham jail. Thank you and good night.